Hey guys, and welcome to the video. We're going to be discussing 10 unused Spider-Man villains that could be perfect for Spider-Man 4, so grab your web shooters as we swing into this movie news. But before we get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and stay up to date with all the movie news we have going on around here. So guys, we're going to take a look at this Screen Rant article, 10 unused Spider-Man villains who would be perfect for the MCU's Spider-Man 4. Some of the weirdest Spider-Man villains would also make perfect additions to the MCU, despite not posing world-ending threats akin to Kang. So yeah, guys, there's some weird and wacky Spider-Man villains that aren't usually seen on screen and are a bit more obscure, but would be fun to see in Spider-Man 4. So we're going to have a look at this article, guys, see what it has to say, and then we'll have a look at the list of some weird and wacky Spider-Man villains. So when it comes to Marvel villains, Spider-Man often encounters the weirdest, and some of them will be perfect additions to the MCU. The MCU has proven that it could take obscure and downright bizarre villains and turn them into on-screen powerhouses, such as with the Avengers Age of Ultron, Black Panther's Claw. Even generally low-level villains like Mysterio and Vulture have managed to keep Spider-Man on his toes as arch-villains of their own movies. Now that the stakes are higher than ever, it could be difficult for Marvel to introduce a Spider-Man villain that could measure up to the likes of Kang or Thanos. However, the advent of the multiverse and its limitless possibilities, Marvel could turn the most bizarre villains into genuine threats. Even with their outlandish powers and origins, these 10 weird Spider-Man villains have the potential to be perfect additions to the MCU, with convincing reasons to make their cinematic debuts. So guys, starting at number 10, we have Stegron. Stegron, also known as Dinosaur Man, is a similar character to Lizard, even using Connor's formula to undergo his transformation. The main difference is that he exhibits the traits of a Stegosaurus, and is generally associated with dinosaurs. The introduction of the Savage Land, where Stegron's origins are tied, would be a wildly entertaining addition to the MCU, which the newly introduced multiverse could easily facilitate. It could also allow the MCU to introduce its own Connors without turning him into a lizard. Number 9, Kangaroo. While probably not the kind of character deserving of a main villain status, Kangaroo's arrival in the MCU could come as a welcome source of comic relief to a counterbalance of the melancholic tone of Spider-Man No Way Home's ending. As the name suggests, Kangaroo's abilities center around jumping very high, making him one of Spider-Man's least threatening villains. But between the prevalence of Stark Tech in the MCU providing a suitable route for Brian Hibbs' version of the character, and a fatigue of facing off against universe-ending threats, Kangaroo could provide a welcome dose of silliness. If not, perhaps Kang variant Kangaroo the Conqueror could fill the kangaroo-shaped hole. Number 8, Screwball. Screwball is a recent addition to the Spider-Man Rogues Gallery, as evidenced by an unconventional defining feature, being a social media influencer. Screwball is one of the villains that can be difficult to imagine posing a threat to Peter Parker, at least on the face of it, but if Quentin Beck proved anything, it's that the exposure is Spider-Man's greatest fear, so soon after regaining his hidden identity. Screwball could enter the MCU as a real threat to Parker's grand designs, while at the same time being relevant to the modern era. The multiverse could also provide Screwball with a route into the MCU via the Marvel Spider-Man video game. Number 7, the Living Brain. Another culturally relevant figure comes in the form of a villain that was first introduced in 1963. Living Brain is a robot with the capability to store an infinite amount of data in its hard drive and the ability to think at superhuman speeds. With artificial intelligence being such a hot button issue today, it's easy to imagine how the impossibility intelligent supercomputer could have appropriated for a modern day MCU. Living Brain could also be used to introduce the MCU specific Dr. Octopus, who once stored his consciousness in a robot in the comics. Number 6, Styx Stone. Marvel has a knack for creating sympathetic villains in the MCU, and the Cult of Entropy members Styx and Stone could be next to join that list. Styx' destitution, attempts to make ends meet, put him in the path of Stone, whose experiment gone awry turned Styx into a living cancer, whose life force is sustained through death. With the ability to outright kill any organic matter they touch, these are two of the weirdest Spider-Man villains that could pose a genuine threat within the MCU. Their inclusion could also facilitate a Deadpool and Spider-Man team-up, now that Deadpool is part of the MCU. Number 5, Doppleganger. As one of the most visually striking Spider-Man villains, the monstrous Doppelganger could provide the perfect opportunity for Spider-Man to further explore the horror genre, akin to certain scenes with Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Doppelganger is a near-mindless copy of Peter Parker that exemplifies what horrors could have transpired if Parker's run-in with the radioactive spider went seriously wrong. Given that the MCU is embroiled in the multiverse, and that countless variants it harbours, it's not hard to see how one Peter Parker variant could take this horrific guise and deliver some unusually terrifying moments. Number 4. Spot. Following Spot's pivotal role in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, there is a clean opening for this bizarre Spider-Man villain to enter the MCU. Armed with the ability to throw portals that are attached to his body, Spot is a testament to Marvel's creativity. Spider-Man No Way Home offered a satisfying taste of what portal-throwing fight scenes could look like in the MCU, and it's safe to say that Parker has developed some pretty hands-on experience in dealing with them. Spot, in particular, has already provided an obvious setup for having Spider-Verse and MCU universes collide satisfyingly, making Spot central to introducing Miles Morales to the MCU. Number 3. Swarm. As a villain whose body comprises of a colony of bees steered by human intelligence, the weirdness of Swarm is pretty self-evident. He is also a villain who could be pretty relevant in a modern setting. However, given his adjacency to beekeeping and its importance when it comes to maintaining a healthy global ecosystem, Thanos' drive to stem the consumption of limited resources was what made the arch-villain so compelling, and Swarm could follow in a similar drive, albeit on a much smaller scale. While this would deviate from Swarm's more overtly nefarious origins, some clever waving of creative license could even put Swarm in a sympathetic villain camp. Number 2. Human Fly. Between Spider-Man, Ant-Man and the Wasp, bug-themed heroes are pretty well catered for in the MCU. A bug-themed villain, however, could provide an interesting dynamic for Parker to explore in the future. Richard Deacon, the MCU's own Human Fly, could provide that interaction. The MCU's J. Jonah Jameson could become a much more significant character due to his part in helping to create this particular villain. Though largely unthreatening, Deacon could also help introduce a payoff to abandoned Scorpion tease during the post-credit scene of Spider-Man Homecoming, given that both villains were created by one of the Stillwell scientist brothers in the comics. And guys, finally at number 1, the White Rabbit. The Alice in Wonderland themed villain, White Rabbit, would be a real tour de force if Marvel decided to introduce her into the MCU. While Lorraine Dodson lacks any superpowers to speak of, her penchant for petty crime and chosen form of transport, a giant mecha bunny, has the potential to be endlessly entertaining. White Rabbit is also in the habit of teaming up with other bizarre villains, including the Menagerie, which comprises of animal-themed rogues, such as Hippo, potentially opening the floodgates for a veritable invasion of Spider-Man's weirdest villains in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So yeah guys, with that down, I just thought this would be a really fun video just to kind of go through and look at some of the more obscure Spider-Man villains that could possibly not only pop up in Spider-Man 4, but could pop up in the future MCU at some random place or in a Spider-Man related movie. It would be really fun to just to see these kind of wacky kind of villains just pop up. Guys, jump into the comment section. Let me know which one of these villains from this list of 10 that you would like to pop up in the MCU or a Spider-Man film. I'd love to hear what you have to say about this, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you soon.